This week we're going to work on improvements to the combat system by improving area attacks, starting on a frozen status affliction, and also developing tools to help me improve the animations the game already has. Some of this stuff is still a little bit of a work in progress, and I did have one less day this week because of Monday, but I mean, it's fun to be able to set lots of stuff on fire. This is a procedurally generated game about exploration and discovery in a large fantasy world. It's essentially trying to distill the feeling of discovering things in a large world like Skyrim down into a gameplay loop that would fit quite well onto a mobile device. And what fantasy game would be complete without a combat system? Well, not this one, I can tell you that. So the special moves in this game haven't been touched in quite a while, and now we're back to doing combat. I decided they needed a bit of attention. After the changes I made last week, if you even did a special attack, it would just crash the entire game. Oops. Most of the work this week was me just reorganizing some code. So for instance, special attacks now use a function callback system to animate rather than just spawning a projectile like they did before. I'm doing this because later on I'm going to want to do things like animate multiple special moves or spawn multiple projectiles over a period of time. So introducing the concept of multi-frame special moves is actually going to be kind of important. Right now though, the only special move I have in the game is to set fire within a radius and basically just return immediately. Another thing I tried to do this week was make some improvements to the projectiles themselves. The fireballs ended up having a bit of a makeover because I made them this model in Blender. I did have some problems with it though, and that was mostly related to drawing depth. Remember that if you skip pixels for transparency, that's not necessarily reflected in the depth buffer, which can then lead to some graphical glitches. I'll have a look into this in a bit because skipping depth checks is less of an option here as the model is more complicated, and I'm fairly sure there's actually a more simple solution to this. Now aside from all that, the main thing I was working on this week was a tool to help me animate things like characters. All of the animations I actually have in this game were created by hand using a text editor, and that's actually a disgusting way to create animation. I had actually thought for a little while that it might actually be possible to use Blender's Python tools to create some sort of editor on top of what Blender actually provides anyway, and turns out I was right about that. So basically you have a Python script which takes all the arguments like name of the enemy type and the animation to actually edit. It then starts Blender up using subprocess and passes it the actual extension script to run along with some flags. The script can then import the meshes into the correct places, assign the materials, and apply the animation frames to the constructed model. In order for Blender to know how the models actually look though, I also had to write an engine project to export my scroll definitions into a JSON format, which Blender can then go off and pass. I also had to pass the animation XML file in order to get some of this to work, so there's actually quite a few files involved with this. By the end of the week I managed to get as far as getting all of the mesh into Blender with all of the different keyframes attached. There are still some problems with the animation though, because I did define my animation values with quaternions for some reason, and Blender animates them differently to the engine. Either way though, it's coming along, and basically the remaining step is to just dump all the animation values out to the XML file. Although I can see that being a bit complicated. I'm hoping to get it all finished off by next week so I can start making some actually good animations for this game. So I'll see you then.